And our first speaker will be Sean D. Cohen. If you can please start walking up to the front. We're giving him 2 minutes. Steve, do you have your second hand working? And I think all he needs to see is maybe a stop sign, so you can either give him the airplane sign in the back of the room, and you can pick up the microphone if you like.
Sure. Where am I looking as far as the time? I'm sorry.
He's right here. You have 2 minutes to introduce yourself. And what I can tell you from Sean, he's a gang homicide prosecutor. So he's used to the bad guys. Sean?
Just a little bit about my background. I grew up locally. I grew up in Burbank. I went through high school there. Then I went to University of Oregon for my undergraduate. Went to McGeorge School of Law in Sacramento. And then I came back to Los Angeles because I knew I wanted to work here. I'm a deputy district attorney with Los Angeles County. I've been so for 12 years. I'm currently assigned to the gang unit there, the hardcore gang unit, in which I solely prosecute gang murder cases and gang attempted murder cases. I have been endorsed by, is it working? I've been endorsed by Steve Cooley and Sheriff Baca. But in my race, I'm the only candidate who has been endorsed by over 100 Los Angeles Superior Court judges. I'm the only candidate that's been endorsed by the Metropolitan News legal newspaper as well as the Los Angeles Times. I'm the only candidate that's been endorsed by many police organizations, including the Los Angeles Police Protective League, the Professional Peace Officers Association, the Association for Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs, the Los Angeles County Police Chiefs Association, and by the Mexican American Bar Association, the Mexican American Bar Association Political Action Committee, and the Latino Prosecutors Association. I am going upon this endeavor because of my experience in the courtroom. I'm the only candidate in my race that has done 101 felony jury trials. I just finished my 101st felony jury trial a couple weeks ago. And it's this experience about being in the courtroom constantly that's going to help as far as being on the bench. We are suffering with the courts right now, having court closures. We have another $549 million that's going to be taken away from the courts. What is that going to affect? Mostly civil, because the criminal courts cannot be squeezed anymore because we have constitutional rights, statutory rights afforded to defendants that we have to respect. It's this experience that I want to bring into the courtroom to help the courts, to help the community, because public protection is my utmost concern. Thank you very much.
Our next 2-minute judge is Craig Gold. While he's walking up, I'd just like to let you know that Craig Gold is also running for office number 3 against Sean Cohen, Lawrence Caldor, Jose Escalante, and Craig Gold is a criminal trial prosecutor.
Good evening, everyone. For those that I haven't met before, my name is Craig Gold. I am a Deputy District Attorney for LA County. And similar to my colleague, Sean Cohen, who just spoke, I've been in the office 22 plus years, okay? Both doing criminal and civil prosecutorial trial experience. And prior to that, I'm more than just a prosecutor. I've been a labor negotiator. I went to Cornell University. I was a negotiator for the Flight Attendants Union in Washington, D.C., worked in corporate as a labor relations manager in San Francisco, worked in healthcare management while I went to law school at night. So I have experience in both the private sector, in labor relations. I understand a lot about business. I'm also active in the Cornell community. In the Alumni Association, I do public policy events on alternative energy, economic development. I bring people together from both parties and from people like John Chung, who came to the event, the state controller, Kurt Hagman, a Republican, Gavin Newsom from the Democratic Party. We bring a lot of people together with academic people because I'm the type of person who looks for answers and solutions to problems. I'm not running for just to become a criminal judge. What I stand for, ladies and gentlemen, is public safety and economic justice for the courts and for all of us. And what does that mean? Everyone knows that the criminal court system is having a lot of problems with budget cuts, the realignment of taking less violent felons from the prisons to the jails that will be released early. That's one big issue. And more importantly, in the civil context, with the courts being cut, tell me if you think, has anyone been sued here, has gone to court on a lawsuit? And if you are a small business person, entrepreneur, you're going to get your equal footing in court against a big corporation or a very wealthy person. The courts are for the wealthy today. They've always been that way for years, and it's getting wider. I'm going to be an architect for justice for the court system. I'm there to be a judge for the people, to stand up to make the court system better in the long run, to triage the system as it gets cut. But as things get better and as we improve, I'm going to make sure that that system is something that we believe in. Will be better for you, better for us, better for our children, because it's going to be for everyone and not just for the wealthy. I want to make sure there's due process rights. I'll be an active person. I build on relationships. It's not about party things. But let me tell you about my endorsements. I'm endorsed by Steve Cooley. I'm endorsed by Lee Baca. I'm endorsed by John Chung, the state controller. They come to all my events because they know what I'm all about. I have the endorsements of many judges. This is not about nepotism. This is not about inequity. This is about someone fighting in the grassroots that wants to stand up for the rights of the people here to make our system better.
Thank you.
So please vote for me and endorse me for seat 3. Thank you very much.
Now, if you are going through your books, on Office 10, Kim Smith is a he, it's not a she. And he is a criminal prosecutor in which there have been some question as to how strong a candidate he could be for the race. Sanjay T. Kumar at the time is the judge, and he has been taken on as a Superior Court judge because they believe that people are going to look at his last name and think differently of him. We're hoping that you do not do that. On office number 38, I had invited Lynn Diane Olson, which I have not seen so far tonight. So I will pass on her. The next one I have is Douglas Weitzman. I do know he had another event that he was invited to. As a matter of fact, he was with the North Valley Club. And as you can see here is from office number 38, 31 years experience as attorney, 14 years experience as a volunteer temporary judge, presiding over 75,000 cases. He describes himself as fair, impartial, and patient. His highest integrity is what he believes is what he's running on. He was a prior instructor at the University of Phoenix. He's a 5th generation Californian. He's a graduate of Southwest University School of Law, the University of Southern California, and UC Berkeley. So at least, and those of you that know, I'm letting know that I did show his materials. The next person I have is for office number 65, Shannon Knight. While Shannon is coming up to the stage, I just want to let you know that Shannon Knight is a gang homicide prosecutor. So she too is used to dealing with a lot of bad boys. And in the process, I'm sure there's a few women in there. Shannon, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, thank you all for having us. Good evening, everyone. We do appreciate the opportunity to speak to you and let you know a little bit about ourselves, because it's very difficult for judicial candidates to get the word out there. I do also want to just take a couple of seconds to tell you what a wonderful judge Judge Sanjay Kumar is, and to encourage you all to vote for him. He is a fabulous, wonderful judge. I've appeared before him many times, and it is a shame that he's being challenged, but by all means, I do encourage you to vote for him. With regard to myself, I am a deputy district attorney. I am assigned to the hardcore gang division. As Sean Cohen mentioned, we prosecute gang-related murders and attempted murders. I have over 90 jury trials. I believe I'm at 92, including 17 murder trials. I am endorsed by Steve Cooley, by the Association for Los Angeles Deputy Sheriffs, the Los Angeles County Professional Peace Officers Association. This is a nonpartisan position, but I will let you know I am a lifelong Democrat. I am endorsed by the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, as well as the Democratic Party of San Fernando Valley, and several Democratic clubs, including Stonewall Democrats, New Frontier Democrats, and various local Democratic clubs. I feel very strongly that we need judges who are knowledgeable on the law, who will apply the law in a fair and impartial manner, who will protect the public in doing so, and also who will treat people who come before the court with dignity and respect. I was raised to treat other people the way I would want to be treated. That was the golden rule, and you live by that. And I continue to do that at this time. I would treat everyone who comes into court with respect, courtesy, and the dignity that we all deserve as human beings. In addition, as you might expect as a deputy district attorney, I feel that I have dedicated my career to public safety and to public service, and I would greatly appreciate your support in continuing on and being able to continue that public service as a Superior Court judge. I'm not sure how much time I have left. I'm not sure where I'm looking. Oh, that's it. All right, thank you very much.
We really got 3 minutes. The next person I had was Matt Sean Brunn. I never did hear from him. Andreas C. Thompson is not here. And the next one I had was Kenneth Hewley. And Kenneth Hewley sent me the following. Kenneth Hewley he's running for the 78th. He made it clear that he's a retired criminal prosecutor, retired Air Force colonel, who flew 564 combat missions in Vietnam. He's an ex-POW for over 6 years and includes some years as at the Hanoi Hilton. He's a retired aerospace engineer with 13 years of criminal prosecution at the Los Angeles City Attorney's Office. He's a husband, a father, and grandfather. Judging on each case fairly, he takes into account all aspects of the case and effects of a ruling, helping to reform our justice system, keeping children out of prison who are hardened criminals, and keeping politics out of the courtroom and our justice system. He is highly endorsed by United States Senator John McCain, Congressman Steve Kuykendall, and Torrance City Councilman Pat Verney. He's also included in that as the Iceman is a character in the movie Top Gun who really inspired by the calm and cool attitude exhibited by Air Force Major Kenneth Hewley during his 564 combat missions. And he's also known as the Rabbit, the best bench officer he's ever known. And he is also a country magistrate. His father was also a country magistrate. So I just want to let you know that he did send in his information, but he was unable to attend tonight. The next person I wanted you to hear from is James D. Otto. I don't know if he came in. I know he sent us some information on his case also. And I don't know what the situation was as to why he didn't show. But he did send his information a little early on. And what I will do, for those that are not here tonight, what I will do is put their information on the website so you can see these for yourself. On Smart Vote, which is put out by the National League of Women Voters, I want to let you know they will give you a detailed breakdown of the candidates. They do vet the information after it's been put on the site. So if you have any questions about the information, you can use them as the source. The next person I have who is here in the house is Brees, who is a consumer attorney. I would like him to come up to the front. And this man came a long ways to be with us tonight, ladies and gentlemen, so I want you to also give him a hand.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Brees. That's B-R-E-E-S. I'm running with Harmon in seat 114. It's a nonpartisan race, but I'm a lifelong Democrat. I live in the Van Nuys. I grew up in Canoga Park, graduated from Taft High School, went away to the University of Notre Dame for college, worked my way through there, graduated with a teaching credential. There were no jobs in 1972, so I had to give up teaching. I did substitute teach for a while. That was not pleasant. So it didn't work, but I tried a lot of different things trying to find my way. I was a probation officer, a pretrial release officer, salesman. I owned 2 small businesses, one in Van Nuys, one in West Los Angeles. And finally, I just went into sales and went to night law school at the San Fernando Valley College of Law on Sepulveda Boulevard. It was taken over by University of Laverne when I was there, so I actually graduated from there in 1989. So I literally started life over again at age 40. Since passing the bar exam after my first attempt, I've practiced civil litigation. I'm probably the only candidate you're going to hear tonight that has no experience in the district attorney's office. I have 21 years in civil litigation in many different roles. I've represented plaintiffs, those are the people that sue, and I've represented defendants, those are the people that are being sued, in all kinds of cases through trial in simple automobile accidents, through wrongful death, sexual discrimination, harassment, premises liability. I was on the panel for a major supermarket chain. I'm on the panel for the largest fast food restaurant as well. I started off as a defense attorney, but now in the last 15 years I've just been doing exclusively plaintiff's work, helping people that have been injured or wronged somehow. In addition to wearing both hats as a plaintiff's attorney and a defense attorney, I've also volunteered and served as an arbitrator, mediator, and settlement officer through the Alternate Dispute Resolution Office of the Superior Court. And in that capacity, I've worked on hundreds of cases, from auto cases on up to medical malpractice, the whole gamut of cases that I did as a litigant as well. And all that training and work is to get cases resolved short of trial. Someone spoke about the cuts that are going in the courtroom. We need people in the civil section that are going to be talented and skilled in mediating cases, getting cases resolved. If all cases have to be tried, in civil or criminal, the system just will not work. So we've got to get cases resolved. I have a lot of training in that. So I'll take to the bench that life experience of many, many different jobs, small business owner, probation officer, pretrial release officer, plus the 21 years as a lawyer. That combined will make me an excellent judge. I'm endorsed by the San Fernando Valley Young Democrats, Mexican American Democratic Club, SEIU, 721, Ask Me Court Clerks, local, Gardena Valley Democratic Club, was that the time signal?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. And a host of other, you check my website, www.breesforjudge.com, and a lot of elected officials. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Now, what I would like is all the judges that introduce themselves. We have one more, which Harmon. I want you to come up to the front of the room. We're going to lay out some chairs, which Rick is doing right now, so that we can start shooting questions at you. We'll have the 2 microphones for you to speak from. And in the meantime, while they're Eric.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Eric Harmon. I'm running for seat 114, and I'd like to thank the Democratic Club of the Santa Clarita Valley for hosting this, in particular Minerva, for taking the laboring oar and organizing all of this. I'd like to tell you a little bit about where I've been, where I am right now, and where I'd like to be. I grew up in Texas. I came to California to go to the University of California, Berkeley. Went back home to Texas to the University of Texas School of Law. And then I came back out to California, where I've been for now 14 years. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I worked in 2008 on a volunteer basis for President Barack Obama in Nevada, for his campaign, I should say, at that time. And I'm, on a personal level, a committed Democrat. I also am endorsed by the Democratic Party of Los Angeles County and the Democratic Party of the San Fernando Valley. Where am I now? I'm in the district attorney's office. Surprise. Why are there so many prosecutors running for this prestigious seat of judge? It's because of experience. We've been in the courtroom, I've been in the courtroom in particular for 13 years every single day, learning from others, learning from the bench officers, from the clerks, from the bailiffs, from everyone about how a courtroom is run. I'm now in the Major Crimes Division. I was in the Hardcore Gang Division. After that, I was selected to go to what is considered by many to be the most elite trial unit, where we prosecute high-profile cases. I tell you that because I believe now I have the temperament, I have the wisdom, I have the ability to listen, to decide, and to stay current on the law, all those things that you need in a good judge. I'd like to continue to serve the public as a loyal public servant, not as a DA in a robe, but as somebody who is knowledgeable about the law and can render decisions in a fair and impartial fashion. I've also been endorsed by many, many different organizations. I'd like to mention some that I'm most proud of. The Los Angeles Times has endorsed me. I've been given a rating of well qualified by the Los Angeles County Bar. We go through an extensive evaluation process. I received that high rating, well qualified, I'm very proud of. Also, I've received the endorsement of Steve Cooley, Sheriff Baca, and many, many different labor organizations, including SEIU 721, UFCW 721, AFSCME, I believe it's 535, don't quote me on that. And I'm also a member of the Association of Deputy District Attorneys. So in closing, I'd like to just ask for your vote on June 5th. If you have an absentee ballot, I'd like to encourage you to vote for me. I'd also like to ask for this club's endorsement. Even though I've been endorsed by the party countywide, I think it's important for you to hear from me personally and for you to know the kind of person I am. I'm a well-rounded guy, married with 2 kids. I live in the Valley. My wife works. And I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth. I know what it's like to be a working person. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and please vote June 5th. Thank you.
Again, can all the judges please come up to the prospective judges, please come up to the front of the room. Now I'm going to try to facilitate this with you guys sharing a mic. Be nice. Steve, I want them to keep their comments down to 1 minute so we can get more questions answered. And if you have any questions from the floor, because we are videoing the process, if you can raise your hand if you have a question, I will try to run to you so we can at least hear your voice. I'm going to start off to get your juices rolling. And I've been reading some of these things up for a while. My first question, and we'll start off with Mr. Brees. It appears the criminal justice system has begun to focus more on the rehabilitation of offenders rather than punishment. With that in mind, what is your opinion on the effectiveness of this view? As only those who wish to be rehabilitated can be effectively dealt with. How would you answer that?
Well, I think it's high time we put rehabilitation back into the formula. This locking people up and throwing away the key is not working. Just graduate professional criminals is what we're doing. So I'm all for alternative sentencing whenever possible and practicable. And rehabilitation, start at an early age with the youngsters, the young criminals. When I did probation and pretrial, if there's that one arrest that usually sparked another arrest and another arrest. And if you don't intervene early and get people back on track, the chances are they're not going to get on track. If you wait until they've committed 2 felonies, chances are very slim. I also understand that some people need to be separated from society for a long time. There are some bad people out there. These folks here have put them in jail gladly. So, but those who have to be separated need to be treated humanely, given adequate health care, taken care of in a humane manner. So I'm all for this push to get people reintegrated into the community as productive citizens versus just separating them for ever and ever and then turning them loose as non-productive citizens.
Okay. We pass the microphone to the next. My question to you. What are the common factors that are considered when passing sentences in relation to the scale of sentence that they can pass for an offense?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
What are the common factors that are considered when passing sentences in relation to the scale of the sentence that they can pass for an offense?
If I understand your question, I think it deals with what factors are to be taken into consideration for sentencing?
Correct.
Okay. Now, in the criminal justice system, ladies and gentlemen, when someone commits a felony, you have a sentencing structure of what they call a minimum felony, a midterm, and then a high term. And someone could also be put on felony probation, be served in jail time. So most of in the criminal justice system, prosecutors are constantly making plea bargains that are a bargain to settle a case with the defense attorney and, of course, with the consent of the defendant, and that's usually what happens. In a case where there's a conviction by trial, by a jury or by a court, a judge, and there is a sentence of a felony, the prosecution will argue for sometimes a state prison sentence if it's a violent crime or a serious crime, which is designated under the 3 strikes law. And there's certain limitations that a judge has in that regard. The bottom line is that the factors that are considered are the person's prior record, particularly if he has prior felony convictions for serious or violent crimes, if the person's a recidivist. Those factors play a big role, and the underlying crime. So if someone commits a violent crime and they have a prior history of violent crimes, there's a very strong likelihood that person's going to go off to prison for obvious reasons, because they are a danger to people out in the community. When we get into areas of nonviolent crimes like drug offenses, situations where people have drug problems, possession of drugs, under the influence of drugs, even drug trafficking on a very small scale where people are selling cocaine on the street, but they're also addicted to it. These are different kinds of offenses, and those are the kind of offenses that generally people will look at and will try to put them into drug rehab programs.
Okay.
So
you're giving us a history lesson.
Okay.
The next one I have is if you pass the microphone down, Shannon. If a murderer has a life sentence, why do some offenders get a number of years instead of factors of influence where their decisions when passing less harsher sentences?
I'm sorry, I think I...
If a murderer has a life sentence, why do some offenders get a certain number of years versus others? I'll just cut it down to that, because we'll give you a minute.
Okay. And I'm not sure if the question pertains to a disposition of the case for a determinate term, or if the question refers to someone being paroled.
Paroled.
Okay, that judges and prosecutors, prosecutors have some input in the sense that there are lifer hearings, but the judge essentially sentences someone to life. The parole board essentially makes a decision about whether or not a person gets paroled, a particular murderer. So the judge really initially just gives the life sentence, and it's a separate entity that decides whether or not that person is ever paroled. I would assume that they take into account factors with regard to the defendant himself or herself in terms of their criminal history, as well as the nature of the offense itself. But that would be a decision made by a parole board rather than by a judge.
Thank you. When we're referring to overcrowding in prisons, would this make a difference in how the judges will start ruling? You can address the audience, not me.
That question actually goes right to this new AB 109 that we have right now, the realignment. I'm sure people have heard that because of overcrowding, now we're going to put the burden on local facilities, such as the Sheriff's Department, local police facilities, and they can only hold so much, and so people are going to be released now into society, whether they have served their complete sentence or not. It's scary. It's a scary time that we have coming up, but one of the things with AB 109 is the judge has more options now what to do. For example, there could be a 6-year sentence, and the judge can simply say, you are sentenced to 6 years. Because it's a particular crime, it has to be served in a local facility. So the sheriff or the local facility can release that person in 2 weeks, in a year. And there's not a lot of control over that. However, under AB 109 now, the judge has certain power where they can split the sentence. For example, with that 6-year sentence now, the judge can say, all right, I will sentence you to 2 years confinement time. And then 4 years, for the rest of that 6 years, you will be supervised. And so that under that supervision, if there is a problem, you can come back to court and do more confinement time. So it gives the judge a little more power, options to basically watch over the person instead of just sending the person out. And unfortunately, this way, AB 109, crime has risen a little bit, and there have been more home burglaries, things of that nature. And unfortunately, it looks like it may only get worse, but at least the judge has that power, and we'll see if it works.
Thank you. I'm going to give you my mic because I understand it'd be easier for you to pass this. And I'll take this from you. Okay, Eric, my question to you is, what are 3 mistakes you find in testimony that can make a difference with police or prosecutors making when they're representing government cases in a trial?
Mistakes that witnesses make?
Yes, name 3.
Well, witnesses are a complicated bunch, and we can all attest to that. We've done a lot of trials, and I think it's fair to say that each one is a unique person that comes to the stand with their own personal history, their sense of observation. The most common thing that I see witnesses do is try too hard and not listen to the question. Oftentimes people have an agenda, I'm not saying on one side or the other, but oftentimes people want to tell their story. And in a courtroom, it's give and take. It's not just tell us what happened. So that's one of the things, trying too hard and really not answering the question, which on the campaign trail, a lot of politicians do. The second thing that I think of in terms of witnesses and the issues that they have when they're on the stand is that sometimes they misrecall what they had said before. So for example, sometimes at the scene of the crime they say, I saw the man with a red shirt, and when they get on the stand, it's changed to the man was wearing a blue shirt. It might be an innocent misrecollection of what happened. It might be something that's more nefarious than that. So misrecollection or not remembering what they said before. And lastly, the thing that deeply affects a witness's credibility is the motivation that they have, what acts they have to grind sometimes. That's similar to what I pointed out in the first instance, but oftentimes people get on the stand and they want to help their friend, or they want to do something to the defendant to make him go to prison. So those are some of the things that I've seen in my time as a trial attorney.
Thank you. If you can pass the microphone down to Mr. Brees. My question, if you can make this a short one, I don't profess to be an attorney. How do you know what bail to set?
Well, there is something called a bail schedule, which are, as far as I understand, are guidelines that get set shortly after a person is arrested, and then the court can change that bail amount based on after a hearing where the prosecution and the defense get to argue. better. So that's my understanding. Some people get on their own recognizance and things like that. I think the prosecutors might be able to answer that question a little better than I don't have a lot of experience in criminal stuff.
Okay. Next question. When you hear a judge say, ignore the last question and answer, do you really think the jury is not remembering the last question and answer?
Well, sometimes I look at the jurors and some of them are sleeping, so I think they might have not remembered the last 5 questions. In some of the cases that we've all done, but no, in any type of experience, when a judge does say that, there's no question that information comes in that may be questionable or should not have been admitted, but the judge will admonish the jury as part of a legal ruling to not to bring that into attention. But of course, if something is very, very prejudicial, ultimately that could result in a mistrial, and it would be more than simply an admonition by a judge to tell you that, and he might ask the jury to step out, and that does happen in trials from time to time in the experience that I've had over 22 years.
Thank you. Next question. Why does it seem that drug sellers are just put right back into the streets, along with sex offenders, while those who simply bounce a check, steal a candy bar, or knock the crap out of someone because they made them angry, seem to be getting more time?
Well, I don't know that that is the reality. It might seem that way, and certainly in any given case, there are individual circumstances. So it's difficult to answer, because on any given day, you might have a defendant who maybe commits what seems like a less serious crime, but perhaps has a worse criminal history, versus someone who commits a more serious crime but doesn't have a criminal history. In terms of stealing a candy bar or a minor offense like that, I don't know, but I've not generally seen those people getting serious punishments, at least in this day and age. That's not something that I have seen happening. In terms of narcotics sellers and sex offenders, again, I think what we're looking at right now is when you have, especially in this time with the realignment, the AB 109, when you have offenses that are deemed non-serious and non-violent, essentially they're trying to make room in the custody facilities, the county jail as well as the state prisons, for people who are committing serious and violent crimes. So that probably has something to do with it as well. But I think one thing that you do have to remember is it's not just the offense itself that is taken into account when the sentence is being decided. Part of what is being taken into account is the defendant's criminal history as well as the current offense.
Thank you. Next question. The meaning of behind a reasonable doubt. Do you think jurors really know what that means?
Beyond a reasonable doubt is the jury instruction. It's an abiding conviction of the truth of the charge. Very easy to understand. We get questions about that all the time. The jurors will submit a question saying, can you please expand, can you please explain beyond a reasonable doubt? The jury instruction is a universal instruction, and it has to be given to everyone, and it can't be expanded upon by anyone else, by the court, by counsel. That it's an agreement. These jury instructions are approved, and it's the most fair way for jurors to understand. And they're just given a little bit more. Jurors are given, first of all, how many people here have served as jurors before? Raise your hand. Okay, well, most everybody. And when you're given that instruction, you're given a little more. You're explained it's not proof beyond all possible doubt, because everything in life is subject to some doubt. It's that state of the case where you believe there to be an abiding conviction of the truth of the charges. And a lot of jurors struggle with that concept. But with our system, jurors do understand and jurors do come to verdicts based upon that instruction.
Thank you. Next question. If an experienced judge is listening to all the facts, the evidence day in and day out, can they automatically overturn a jury verdict if they believe the opposite is true?
There are certain circumstances in which a judge, at the conclusion of the case, can grant a new trial because there have been some errors in the case. In a criminal case, it's not been my experience that I've seen judges direct a verdict to the defendant and say, you know, you're not guilty because I didn't believe the star witness, or you are guilty because I did believe the star witness. Primarily, it's not a function of the judge at that moment in time. The judge is the law, so to speak, and the jurors are the finders of the fact. So the judge will get all of the jury instructions together, present it to the jurors. Those of you who've served on jury duty, you know this. And then they come to a factual determination. There are some times where an appellate court can review the sufficiency of the evidence and say that it has not been met. But from my experience, the trial court judge doesn't ordinarily exercise any sort of discretion to overturn a jury's verdict. They might, at times, on a motion for a new trial, say that has not been proved, and there should be a relitigation of the matter, but it's rarely a directed verdict, so to speak.
Next question. Would you refer to yourself as a shrewd negotiator with a take no prisoners attitude? Or do you find yourself always striking cooperative tones?
The latter. I shouldn't say always, because sometimes your opponent can put you in a position where being cooperative can be detrimental to your client. But in cases getting resolved, to resolve cases amicably in favor of your client, you have to have give and take. It's just part of the system. I think it applies in criminal cases as well. But my experience in civil cases is, and as a mediator and arbitrator, you get the case, the sides as close together as you can. There's a cooperative effort. That's how cases get resolved.
Thank you. Why can't a person just simply sit down or walk into a judge's chamber and talk to the judge one-on-one instead of having to go through a trial situation?
Boy, wouldn't that be nice?
I would think you would save money too.
We'd save a lot of money. Actually, in the reality of the court system, I don't know if a lot of you are aware of this, but many cases are actually resolved because the attorneys, for both in criminal and civil, meet with the judge in chambers very frequently, not necessarily with the clients, but to discuss the cases. And this is what Mr. Brees had mentioned. Being in civil and also being a labor negotiator and knowing what it's like with labor and management, the same thing happens to be true when you have mediators which serve like judges. That when you have a relationship with the parties and the lawyers respect each other as professionals, and the judge has a professional relationship with the parties, and this is a continuing relationship, you're going to find that many cases get settled, and they could continue to be settled because you get to the core issue. When you get to the facts and you find out where does this case really lie, what is the common ground, what is going to make the parties reach an agreement, whether it's a plea bargain or in a civil case, a settlement of a case that is likely to tip one way or the other if it goes to a trial. And if the right person's in there, you could do it that way. And in essence, it is done many, many times with a very good judge.
Thank you. What is your definition of an activist judge?
Well, I think an activist judge would be someone who is not necessarily following the law as it is, but perhaps trying to tailor it to what they wish it was. I think it's very important that we have judges who understand that their role is to follow the law. We all certainly have our own personal beliefs, and those don't go away when you become a judge. However, under our system, a judge's function is strictly to follow the law in a fair and unbiased manner. So that is what I would intend to do, is to follow the law, and that would be regardless of whatever my personal feelings would be about any particular law.
Thank you. Next question. Why do you want this job?
I want this job because I have done so many jury trials, and I've seen things that work in court and things that don't work in court, and I want to participate in the system, and I want to do what I can to help out as well. Things that don't work in court, oftentimes even as a jury, you watch crime shows, CSI, Law and Order, and it looks like it's kind of about court shows, except they don't show the part where jurors are sitting in the hallway for a couple hours before they have to go in. And my experience in the courtroom has taught me really how to be efficient, how to run a courtroom efficiently, and that's so important, especially nowadays with what the courts are going through in the budget crisis. It's to make effective use of the time, and the only way to do that is to be experienced and to be in the courtroom every day doing jury trials, knowing how the courtroom is run. And that's why I want to help out and put my 2 cents in.
This is my last question. Why not just be an attorney?
It's a great question. I love being an attorney. I love being an advocate. I personally have done dozens and dozens of jury trials, very serious cases, and there are moments where you feel a great sense as a prosecutor of community service and of service to the public, where you help a victim, you sit with a family who maybe lost a loved one because of the violence of someone else, either domestic abuse or gang murder. And there's nothing better, and I think all the prosecutors would agree, there's nothing better than doing justice and doing the right thing. But why do I want to stop being an attorney and become a judge? Because I know the penal code inside and out. I know the evidence code inside and out. And it gives me great satisfaction to be that person in the courtroom who can help guide the attorneys and help each side get a fair trial and call balls and strikes effectively. That's what it comes down to, is stop being an advocate, passionate. Sometimes you get up there and you get to be, like you're in the movies. Other times you get to be a social worker and help people and get through their problems if they've lost a loved one. Sometimes you get to be a lawyer in the strictest sense of the word, where you go through the penal code or the evidence code. But that, after a while, I think it wears on you. I know if you invest a lot of time in your career and profession, you can't turn it off. And if you can't turn it off, something's scary. So I want to move away from that, take my skills in public service and my knowledge of the law to serve as a fair and honest bench officer. And I'll add one last thing. I know I don't have much time. I want to, the last question, there's an evidence code section, penal code section 1118.1, which permits a judge at the conclusion of the people's evidence to dismiss the case, essentially, if they don't feel that a rational juror could come to the conclusion that the people haven't met their burden. If I didn't say that, many of these people would say afterwards, why didn't you say 1118? So it's on the record, and that's why I'm running for Superior Court. Thank you.
Does the audience have any questions that are burning inside? Do you need a mic?
No.
Okay.
How are judges supervised, or do they have complete autonomy? I don't care which one of you answer.
We have a presiding judge, an assistant presiding judge, and judges get in trouble too. I mean, as you know, but sometimes you see judges in newspapers and things, because perhaps they acted as activists, things of that nature, not following the law. So they do have supervisors, and in each courthouse they have site judges, supervising site judges at the courthouse.
But then, like I was saying before, you have your main supervising judge, presiding judge, and assistant judge that are based downtown that cover all the courts countywide. So there's a supervision structure, sort of keep judges in check.
Thank you.
Whenever, can I have one thing?
And there's an appellate court that if you're wrong, they'll tell you in no uncertain terms. So that's another check or supervision on the individual discretion of judges.
You all supervise the judges. Every 6 years, we come up for re-election. If we're not opposed, it doesn't come on the ballot. If someone runs against us, like with Judge Olson and Judge Otto, then they're on the ballot. But there is a committee on judicial performance that you as a public person can complain about something about a judge has done, and they will investigate and if necessary discipline. Sometimes you hear about the private discipline or public discipline.
Alan?
Two quick questions. If you're elected, who would do more work on cases, you or your court clerk? And number two, in your opinion, why have there been no indictments in the largest bank robbery in recorded human history, i.e. the mortgage meltdown? High on the list being Anthony Mazzillo, Countrywide Mortgage.
Yeah, good, man, very good.
Do you want to answer?
I don't want to get strangled here. The court clerks do the most work. They organize the courtroom, they keep it functioning, they process everything. The judge is there to help them. I would be helpful to the clerks, but in all honesty, the court clerks run the courtroom. They help when things get screwed up. They tell the court how to get things corrected. Now, that doesn't mean the judge doesn't do anything. The judge presides over the trials, presides over hearings, makes sure everyone's doing the right thing, not out of order. But the court clerks do most of the work. I will help the court clerks. I'm not above helping filing things if things get behind. But these cuts that are going on, the clerks are just being asked to work above and beyond. I've heard of clerks saying they've been asked to stay in the courtroom and eat their lunch and answer the telephone during the lunch hour. That's totally inappropriate. The question about the mortgage meltdown, politics is all I can think of. There was a show on MSNBC yesterday about how the person was saying that the Congress is controlled by the banking industry. And so Congress doesn't control it. They're controlled by it. I don't really know the answer to that question. It's a very complicated thing.
I actually was hoping the DAs might weigh in.
Well, for one thing, I think it's outside of the state level. I think banking is more of a federal issue. I think I would see it more likely to be a federal case by the U.S. Attorney's Office if that takes on. But there's no question that before they would even pursue that, we know there's politics. Policies that are decided, even in the District Attorney's Office, are set by the elected official. The President of the United States sets the policies for the Justice Department. He's an elected official. Those that work for him, the U.S. Attorney, sets the tone and the policies that the President sets. So I'll let you decide if you think that there's politics there, okay? We do what we're told to do because we are just a deputy DA that works for the Office of the District Attorney's Office. If we're assigned to a specific special unit, and there is a unit that does deal with consumer protection in the DA's office under state law. If there's any type of violations under the state law involving banks, we can proceed on it. But of course, it goes up the chain of command, and it's up to the head deputy who is in charge of that unit, and he has to get agreement by the district attorney himself whether he wants to pursue a certain type of action. And I'm saying that very honestly because policies are pretty much set by the head person, and the office follows in accordance with that.
Tammy, did you have a question?
Nope.
Does anyone else have any questions?
I'd like to ask a question. Number one, I'd like to thank Mr. Brees for his plug for court clerks, because I am a court clerk for the LA Superior Court, and at times I do think I have more work than my bench officer because I'm usually there first thing in the morning. Most of us do work through lunch because of the budget cuts. Now, depending what you do, I work in misdemeanor, and so that's just volume as opposed to a felony case, which in a felony courtroom you may just be hearing 20, 30 cases. We handle something like 60, 70 per day. but it's just tremendous, tremendous volume.
And your question is?
Yes. You've got one civil litigator up here, and you've got more that are DAs. I want to know how DAs are going to be when you become a judge, because you may not be put into a criminal courtroom. We have a tremendous need for those in juvenile, family law, and civil. So how are you going to take this experience in the DA's office and move it over to another kind of litigation as a judge?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I think all of us that come from the district attorney's office, we generally all do a juvenile rotation. So in terms of juvenile court, I think we all have experience in the juvenile court system. Some of us may have civil experience. I do not actually have civil experience, and I'm not sure about my colleagues to my right. I believe Mr. Gold does have civil experience as well. To me, I think for one thing, most of these civil assignments tend to be somewhat coveted by sitting judges, because afterward, after they retire, they can go on to fairly lucrative careers in arbitration and mediation if they have that civil experience. So the civil assignments are somewhat coveted and in demand by sitting judges. Generally speaking, the vast majority of the time, when you have someone who comes from the district attorney's office or from a criminal background, they generally will end up in a criminal assignment. However, it is certainly possible that we could end up in another type of assignment. Personally, I feel like I'm a quick study. I feel like I'm an intelligent person, and I would certainly make it my business to find out who's the authority in this type of courtroom assignment. Who is the go-to person for family law? Who's the go-to person for, one of these civil assignments, or, a small claims or something like that? I would make it my business to go speak to that person, to attend any seminars that might be available, to speak with the court clerks in those courtrooms. Because, as you know, a lot of times the court clerk is the one that knows more than anyone in the courtroom as far as the procedure that needs to be followed and so forth. And I think the judges, to a large extent, do rely on the court clerks for a lot of that information. So I think it would be an easy transition if it was something that would happen. I'll speak for myself. I feel like it would be an easy transition. I think it's probably unlikely that we would end up in one of those assignments, but I think it would be easy, and courtroom experience, I think, translates over.
Yes, I am in a civil unit, so I'm experienced at least in a very specific area. But I also work with I'm friends with a lot of judges, like I'm sure a lot of our colleagues here, after being a DA for many, many years. For example, Scott Gordon, I don't know if you know him, he's the presiding judge of the family court. Scott was a DA and a police officer. He's one of my neighbors. We're friends. Hank Goldberg's in the family court. Craig Carlin, who was a DA, was in Santa Monica. He was doing probate. The point is that, like I was saying earlier, I would welcome a change, to tell you the truth, because I see myself doing more benefit in the civil court system than the criminal, because that's going to be where the need is. That's where the biggest need is right now. I want to be an architect to improve the system. It's not just being a judge and managing court. That's going to, of course, part of your learning experience, but what about the idea of consolidating courts to make it work more efficiently? And I mean, with these times, how about having mental health courts that deal with drug issues, that deal with treatment issues for people on drugs, that handle it as a treatment issue and not just as a criminal case issue involving drugs? What about the idea that if we have to consolidate courts, we do it as a 24-hour court with shifts? So we make the system work. We have people come at night, come in the day. We have a judge work at night, have day. And everyone has manageable shifts, but we do what we can to make it safe, have economies of scale, and work with the system as best as we can until there's more money, the economy is improving, we're making jobs grow, people are back to work, and then we have a much better system.
Thank you. Now I'm going to have everyone to do the 2-minute close. But before that 2-minute close, I want you to close with this thought in mind. For a nation that is afraid to let its people judge the truth, And falsehood in an open market is a nation that is afraid of its people. That was by John F. Kennedy. Starting with Mr. Brees and passing the mic down, you can give us your 2-minute closing.
I'm going to do this in 1 minute. I think it's been a long evening for everybody, and my experience as an attorney, 21 years in the civil courts, doing all different kinds of things. My life experiences before becoming an attorney, my solid middle-class background, progressive attitude toward things will make me an excellent judge that you will be proud of and not sorry that you endorsed. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am the Democratic Party endorsed candidate, but more importantly than that, I am going to be a judge for all of you, for the people of the state, and for the people of LA. I'm going to be the type of person who's going to make the system work better for you, your children, everyone. Therefore, I am seeking your endorsement from this club, like the Democratic Party and other organizations, and other bipartisan people that support me as a problem solver and as a fair and decent person who will be the best judge for the community. Craig Gold, vote for Gold for Judge, seat 3. Thank you.
Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for allowing us an opportunity to be heard. I forgot to mention this earlier. Thank you to Minerva for her complimentary words. I assure you I am not 14 years old. I haven't seen that in a while. I'm 38. I'm apparently just aging a little bit better than some of my colleagues here. But anyway, I really feel strongly, one of the things that I am very proud of is my reputation as a fair, ethical, honest prosecutor. Yes, we are advocates, but I consider my job to be an advocate for the truth. And the thing I love about my job is that it is my job to do the right thing every single day. And I want to carry that on as a Superior Court judge. I will make it my mission to know the law, follow the law, be fair and impartial, be courteous, and remember everyone's rights. We have to protect everyone's rights, not just the defendants, but also the victims of crime. There's a Victims' Bill of Rights. We need to be more considerate of jurors' time, people in the audience, our staff. In these times, it's very important to work as efficiently as possible. We need to make sure that everyone has access to the justice system. And so that is what I would pledge to do. Again, my name is Shannon Knight. I am running for office number 65. I would appreciate your endorsement. I appreciate your support. And by all means, if there's anyone who's willing to put up a yard sign, just let me know. Thank you.
Good evening again. My name is Sean Cohen. I am running for office number 3, Superior Court Judge. I want to bring change to the courts in that I want to have the courts run efficiently. And it's this experience that I have that's going to allow me to do that. I'm always in court. I'm always in trial. There's a reason why I'm the only candidate in my race that's done over 100 felony trials. And so I get to have that experience to speak to judges, to be in front of judges. And I'm known as a hard worker, and that's the only way I can get that many trials done in such a short time. And that's why I'm the only candidate in the race that has been endorsed by over 100 judges, and why the Los Angeles Times chose to endorse me. I want to be a fair and honest judge, as I am a fair and honest deputy district attorney. And again, keep Los Angeles County, the public at large, their safety a top priority. And that's what I plan to do as a Superior Court judge. Please vote for Sean Cohen for Superior Court Judge, office number 3. I provide materials including those endorsement articles I discussed. Thank you very much.
Eric?
And thanks again, Democratic Club of the Santa Clarita Valley. I could talk for 2 minutes about the people who endorsed me, and I could talk for 2 minutes about what makes me a better candidate for Superior Court than my opponent, Mr. Brees, who, by the way, I've seen quite a bit of, an honorable guy, and a joy to see day in and day out. I could talk about that, but I wanted to turn it back to you. If I were in your seats right now, and I were looking at judges,
First of all, I compliment myself for doing the research and coming out and giving up your evening to do your due diligence. And second of all, I would think, what would this guy do if you were a judge and I were in front of him? Either as a juror, or as a defendant in a civil matter or criminal matter, or as a plaintiff or the victim of crime. What would this guy do for me? And I can't commit and pledge that I'll have any specific political ideology or anything, but I can tell you that my temperament, I'm unflappable. I've been in the most stressful situations in a courtroom. My leadership skills have been tested. The wisdom that I have, that I've gained from the evidence code, is unmatched. And at the very bottom of it is the integrity that I have and I want to bring to the job, an incorruptibility and a fairness. So please, if you're voting tonight, endorse me, not because I'm the democratically endorsed candidate, because ultimately that decision was made by a different group of people who I like to think got it right, but you're the judge now. You are the judge of who you think is best going to serve the community and who's going to best bring honor and wisdom to the bench. I think I'm that person. So again, it's Eric Harmon. I'm running for seat 114, and I thank you all dearly for your attendance tonight and for your support. Thank you.
Can we give them all a big hand?